San Francisco 49ers are looking to bounce back after a really tough injury-riddled 2024 season. This seems to be kind of the last big Super Bowl push year as all of their main stars are going to be having some interesting conversations over the next couple of off seasons. My name is Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we are going to be doing our first mock free agency for the 49ers this off season. Before we get into it, hit that subscribe button, tackle that bell to get notified when new videos come out. And while you're at it, leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you want to see the Niners do this offseason. And Ryan, let's pull up the free agency list here. So
Let's
Niners are
do it.
coming in to with about 50 million in cap space as of now. And as you can see, they've already made a couple of moves, re-signing some of the lower guys as well to contracts for next year, or maybe even just practice squad deals. But a lot of conversations are going to be going on for the 49ers as there's some big names coming up next offseason that are either going to be wanting new contracts, potentially retiring, or like Brock Purdy, for example, he's going to be looking for a new contract next offseason. So this is going to be very interesting on how they try and win right now, as the roster, I think, is built to win right now. But then, two, who are going to be some of the guys that they're going to have to let go, and some decisions are going to be made this offseason, and some are going to have to be made next. So,
Yeah.
Ryan, real quick, looking at this free agency list here, who do you think are some of the players that are going to the front office is going to have the most conversations around?
Yeah. Well, to start things off, Devondre Campbell, I think he's definitely going to be pretty heavily talked about in the front
Now,
office, but
I think he's
not
already been talked about.
yeah, but not for potential re-signings. They do have some other guys like Aaron Banks. Trevarius Ward, unfortunately, will not be back with the team based on his personal situations. But they have Jordan Mason, I think, could be one. Talanoa Hufanga is another. Unfortunately, this team had a lot of injuries this past season, and so a lot of these guys that were going to be or were projected to be larger contributors just weren't. And so Dre Greenlaw being one, John Feliciano another. So like they don't have a ton of guys at the top that I think are like true key free agents. But one guy that is going to be talked a lot about that is not necessarily a free agent is going to be Deebo Samuel. And I do feel like that Deebo Samuel has played his last snap as a 49er. They could save about 5 million this year and save about another, I think, 15 or 20 million next year on the cap, and really just kind of start to turn over this roster and make it a little bit younger, save some money there. And I think that they'll probably trade him with a post June 1st designation just to save that extra money. Even if they don't get a trading partner for him for this year's draft, I do feel like they could get a third or a fourth in 2026 if they want to trade him like in training camp, and he might become available later in the process. But all in all, I do think that the 49ers will move on from Deebo Samuel. I believe there are reports out that they're allowing him to seek trade offers
Yeah.
from other teams. And so I think that is, as far as internal free agency goes, the big roster cut slash trade that we'll make here in this.
Yeah. There's a couple of other guys, like maybe they could save $1 million here, like Leonard Floyd. Maybe they move on from he's sitting at 33 million, and I mean they'd save 1.5. Kyle Juszczyk maybe, but I also think too he's kind of a staple in that Kyle Shanahan type offense, and maybe they could restructure his deal and save a couple bucks.
Mhm. Actually,
So
if they do cut Leonard Floyd, how much that would save him 6 million next year, give him a million back this year. That might make sense.
yeah, I could see that as well, especially too if you look at 2026, because that's kind of one of the things too as well I was going to touch on is typically with some of these teams here, with some of their guys that are going to be there long term, you can restructure some of these deals. But this kind of goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of this video is the way the Niners current roster is set up is they're kind of set up to win now. You see a lot of these guys like, I don't really want to restructure Trent Williams' contract because what happens if he retires at the end of the year and then you're going to have certain dead money or just if you are going to end up moving on from a guy. Only other guy maybe you could restructure some money on would be Fred Warner. But once again, though, it's taking money away from next year to if you want to
Yeah.
re-sign Brock Purdy, if you want to give George Kittle another like 1 year deal and bring him back, or trying to bring on some new talent. That's what I think is going to be extremely interesting with how they go and handle this off season, because it's going to be a lot of implication on future off seasons as well. And so There's a couple guys that we did end up re-signing. Some guys are going to be some core guys on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball here. And first one, free agent, they're going to re-sign. I think they're going to re-sign Aaron Banks, sign him to a multi-year contract at about $8 million per year. Keep some of that continuity up front, and so pretty solid left guard as well. Not the best, but I still also think too you're going to want to keep him around as well. You can maybe improve in the center position, and so they have a lot of picks. So I absolutely believe that they will be drafting on the offensive line just in general. One
Yeah.
potentially finding Fred Warner, not Fred Warner, Trent Williams, future left tackle replacement, potentially finding some more depth at the interior and finding some more competitive in general. But I think you're going to want to go into this season at least with a starting offensive line, and then provide some competition later on.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be really important, especially like you look. Trent Williams is 37 next year. If he retires, he'll be 38. So that would save a decent bit of money on the cap space there. But all in all, I just think you need to be looking both right now and then also trying to build for the future with this team. Hence, like the Debo move, extending some of these younger guys here. So Talanoa Hufanga, Isaac Yiadom, both in that secondary, I think can play significant roles for them. Nothing major, just $9 million for the both of them, 7 to Hufunga, and then 2 to Yedam.
Hmm.
But uh, I do think that re-signing those guys is going to be important, especially too with the moves that we're about to make here. Having that continuity on the back end, I think, will be good for this team. So to kind of start things off, so we did not re-sign Dre Greenlaw. He, I think, is going to be one, expensive, and two, coming off that torn Achilles, he didn't play a whole lot last year. And I just think for this team, that might be a bigger risk to take, where other teams that have more cap space, especially in future years, can afford to take on a larger contract for a player like him. And so they might just be also outbid in that category. But I do think a guy that would be really enticing next to Fred Warner is going to be Isaiah Simmons. He is just super athletic. And I mean, I think a good value. You put him next to Fred Warner, I think that would really allow him to utilize his talents to the best of his ability. You go get Robert Sala as your new defense or new slash old defensive coordinator. And I think that he would do well in that system as kind of that athletic, rangy linebacker as well. And so
Exactly.
I like that fit there. And then Tyler, what is the other move that we decided to make for this 49ers defense?
Yeah, and so as kind of the theme of this is it's like trying to win now, but also then still trying to think about the future as well. And so you are moving on from a couple of your current face on the defensive side of the ball with like Dre Greenlaw and also Javarius Ward as well. So there's some areas you're going to have to go in and address in the draft here, and so you're going to have younger players. And I think there probably couldn't be anything more beneficial to younger secondary member than if you can really just go and beef up and make it a stud defensive line uh, built together. And so this is going to be the defensive line class that the 49ers are really going to address as they need some improvement on the interior. But I think a big splash they can go and make, and it would require a couple of first round draft picks. But if I'm looking at this year's draft, there's nobody that would come in and produce immediately nearly as much as what Myles Garrett would be able to bring. And I do think the Niners are in the Myles Garrett trade market. It would be a first this year, next year. We've seen the 49ers do this and be pretty loose with first round draft picks, i.e., Trey Lance, but ended up working out in the end because they got Brock Purdy, luckily. But I think here, though, you go get Myles Garrett, you put him across from Nick Bosa, and as you're retooling the secondary, and even if you go and get some younger guys on the defensive tackle position as well, those edge rushers, both Nick Bosa on one side, Myles Garrett on the other side, is going to bring so much attention over these next several years. I think it's going to kind of help space this gap as well for as you're trying to retool the secondary. Also, who in the secondary could maybe be improved a little bit. And so I think you go get Myles Garrett, trade him there. It's going to be worth the draft picks. And even too, if you are the 49ers, you have what, 11 draft picks, 12?
Yeah,
12 draft
something
picks
like
as of
that.
right now. You have some compensatory picks, but even as of right now, within the first 4 rounds, according to Tankathon, depending on how the compensatories are going to line up, you have 7 picks in the top 4 rounds. So if you give up an 11th, you give up one of like your third round compensatory pick, a day 3 pick to the Browns, plus then one next year, 3, and then a third rounder after that. And then if you trade Debo Samuel this offseason for a third or fourth rounder, so it's kind of a wash. You have a lot of capital there. And once again, Myles Garrett, he's only
Mhm.
30. You put him across from Nick Bosa, you're going to have probably one of the best edge rushing rooms in the entire league. I think this move, if you're trying to win now, I think this move really helps out this defense as of right now. And because offensively, just looking at 2025, they do move on from Debo Samuel, but I think there's still a lot of good production that can come from this offense here. They were just so banged up last year, not having McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk going down really early on. Debo Samuel was in and out of the lineup as well. I think this move helps out kind of during this transitional period. You see, there is some cap space areas for next year, but once again, they can move on from some veteran guys, clear up some cap space as well, restructure his and Nick Bosa's deal because they're going to be there for a long time, or at least over the next
Yeah.
several years. So you can help pay for Brock Purdy, and then while you're still developing this young talent. So I think the Niners are in the Myles Garrett trading camp because it's the most win now move right now, and I think they're a very win now team.
Yeah. No, and I definitely agree with that. I just think it makes a lot of sense. They have the cap space to do it this year. I think that puts them back in the top of the league in terms of Super Bowl favorites as well. And I just think you look forward to next year. They have a little bit more access to money through restructures and uh, like potential cuts as well. And so I just feel like that is going to be a really solid move for this team. And you can finagle the cap. They have a lot of money in 2027, and they still actually have a like probably 20 or 30 players
Hmm.
on the roster for that. So there's more money that they can pull from there. I think you also look at the cap space is going to continue to go up and hopefully there's a little bit more money for them to work with in future years. So all in all, I think for the 49ers, this is a fantastic situation that they're in. And I look forward to seeing what they do here in 2025. I feel like it's like every other year for the 49ers, where they're like uber competitive.
Yeah,
So I think 2025 could be a year that Kyle Shanahan finally gets over the hump.
I like it. It could be. We'll see. Or they'll get back to the Super Bowl and then we'll blow a fourth quarter lead. So we'll have to kind of wait and
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, that seems to be the trend there with him. But on that note, let's go ahead. Let's wrap this up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of this 49ers mock free agency. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? Other than that, we'll see you guys next time.